Compare your experience or experiences in Montreal versus in the United States pertaining to race and how you were accepted or not accepted. Was there a big difference?
Oh, tremendous difference, tremendous difference. First of all, we got married in February and went to our first spring training in April. On our way to spring, and we were determined to get to spring training on time and be ready to play. And when I say we, that's the way it was. I mean, I was in on all this. I didn't walk behind him. I walked beside him, and we were in it together. I dressed for, I have to put dress in here because Jack had given me an ermine coat that he had paid down on and paid on for the whole 5 years that we were engaged. So I had on my ermine coat and my Harlem hat. I bought a hat in Harlem, and I had my handbag, and I was ready. The stewardess on the plane came, when we got to New Orleans, came to our seats and said, you need to go into the office. We thought it was just a stopover. And so Jack got up and went to the office, and the stewardess came back to me, and she said, I think you need to follow him. And we didn't know it, but we were being bumped from the plane.
This is en route to Florida?
En route to our first spring training in Florida.
Florida, yes.
When I walked into the airport, I saw Jack arguing with somebody at a counter, and I thought I should be over there because we don't want anything to go wrong. We were very nervous. I was very nervous about going into the South. I'd never been South. I'd read a lot of things about the South, and I was nervous. So before I went over there, though, I noticed the signs: white women, black, what are they called? Negro women, I guess. And I went in the white woman's dressing room. I had to do something to restore my sense of power, or who I am or whatever. And so I went in the white women's bathroom. Nobody stopped me. They looked at me like I was crazy, but, I felt better when I came out. And then I went over and took Jack's arm, and I said, what's going on here? He said, well, we're being taken off the plane, and they don't give us a good explanation, and they say there's nothing else going out tonight, and we're going to have to stay here overnight. So we didn't have any recourse because he was talking to the supervisor, and that was it. So we went to a hotel, a terrible rundown place that Jack remembered from when he'd been on tour. And the beds were like newspaper was on the bed, this crinkly, lopsided, whatever. Anyway, it didn't do anything for our spirits. It made us feel even worse. And we spent the night there and went back. We were put on another plane, and when they got to Pensacola, Florida, they called us again and called us in and gave us the same story that they had to put on extra gasoline or something. We saw a white couple going on the plane. We were furious, but you almost feel like you cannot make trouble when you don't know what the circumstances are and who's going to come to your aid if you do make trouble. And we had to get to that Daytona Beach April 1st. I mean, we just didn't have time to be arrested or to anything. So we complied, and we got off. And we decided to take a bus the rest of the way. And we took a bus from Jacksonville on into Daytona Beach, Florida. And even on the bus, I had the first experience of having to sit on the back of the bus.
Oh, even on the bus.
Even on the bus. We had to sit on the back of the bus. They forced us back there. And pretty soon, when people started coming in from the fields and whatnot, there were a lot of black people on the bus, but they had to stand because all the seats were taken. We developed on that back seat a little scheme whereby we'd sit up and somebody else could sit back, and that made more room on the back bench. Or we'd take turns standing. There was a coordinated, cooperative spirit that developed on a bus ride. That's the only way I can recover, and that's my way of dealing with any kind of stress or trauma, is to look for signs of hope. And this little business on the bus made me feel good. I said, oh, black people can stand together, and we're not going to let anybody stand up too long, and and it was great. I made a whole thing out of it. But when we got to Daytona, that was just the beginning, because in Jacksonville, the game was called off because Jack was there. They locked the park and wouldn't allow the team on the grounds. In Sanford, Florida, Jack was on the field, and they sent the police out on the field to escort him in. They said they didn't allow mixed games. So we had real raw experiences like that. We couldn't live with the team in the hotel, of course. They lived right on the beach, and we were placed with a black family. But that, too, was a blessing for that particular thing. It was such a relief to get into the home of Joe and Duff Harris every evening, where we had a home, and we didn't have the scrutiny of what's happening out in the white world, and we didn't have the pressures of that. We had a little tiny bedroom at the top of the stairs in the Harris home, and we were on our honeymoon, so we didn't mind. We just loved being up there by ourselves. And we played a little gin rummy, and we made love, and we just did all the, we had a grand time. In Vero Beach, for instance, they allowed black people into the stands, but they had a hole in the fence. They couldn't come through the turnstile. They had a hole in the backfield fence, and they had to stoop and come in through this hole in the fence. It was so humiliating and so terrible, and I refused to go sit in that park. I have photographs of it where black people were dressed up to come to that park. The men had on hats. The women were dressed. It was an outing for them, a really lovely outing. And when the black section filled up, they had to sit on the field on the ground. So if a ball came to the outfield, they had to scramble like animals.
Yes.
It was so humiliating and so distasteful that I used to go to the park and sit in the car, and I wouldn't go in. I'd try to hear the game on the radio. So all through Florida, we had that experience. Now here's Rachel again with looking for the bright side. One, we had the Duff Harris house, which was like home, and the people that the Harrises knew were very politically astute, and they were working together. For instance, they were going to get black bus drivers while we were there. They were working to get black bus drivers, and they were organizing around that. They also, when Jack got very uptight and went into a hitting slump while we were there. When he finally got the first hit, they called all the faculty in from Bethune-Cookman College. Oh, yes. And Mrs. Bethune was still alive. And they had a dinner in their house celebrating Jack's victory of being able to start hitting. And they brought things from the agricultural school, fresh vegetables and chickens and everything else, to their house. So we had that. And then we had the great pleasure and excitement of meeting Mary Beth Cloud Bethune. She was fantastic. She was a great lady and very gracious and warm and wonderful to us. And she said, "You keep on, you're doing the right thing," and a lot of encouragement came from her. We had this horrendous experience, really. We were immersed in a situation in the South that we had never been quite challenged to that extent, and physically threatened as we felt we were in the South. So we were glad to get out of there.
I guess. And
we were assigned to Montreal. Taking all this baggage with me up to Montreal, the club had not identified our living quarters. They gave us a list of apartments. And I thought, what did they know? I mean, this is not going to go well. But anyway, I took the list, and the first place I selected on De Gaspé Street, I rang the bell with a lot of trepidation, and the woman came out, and she's smiling, and she didn't react to my color.
This is in Montreal now.
In Montreal.
Yes.
If she reacted to my color, it was not visible. She said, "Oh, come in, and you come from the ball club?" And I said, "Yes," and so forth. We sat, and she took me around, and I knew the signs when someone's going to turn you off and someone's going to reject you. You know the signs right away. I mean, they take this when they first see you. There's the startled look, or whatever, or the despairing look. And she wouldn't have shown me around if she didn't intend to let me think about it. Well, I loved the apartment. It was beautifully organized and very nicely kept in a nice neighborhood. It had a nice back porch and a lot of features that I liked. So we sat down and started talking, and she said, you know, I really would like you to use my linens and my china and my glassware. So she said, I'm leaving everything here for you. And another good sign
Wow.
that she was not discriminating against me. In other words, she's welcoming me in a very different way. And that day we signed the lease. Now we had that same kind of reception in the ballpark when Jack got out on the field, big excitement. None of the hate notes we had been getting in other situations, and none of the threats. He didn't need special guards. And this little neighborhood, DeGaspe Street, I was pregnant with Jackie Jr. after we moved there. And there was a tendency on the block for people to come out on their back porches in the evening. So you'd wave to people down next door,
what a
down this
respite.
way and that. When the women saw that I was pregnant, they came in to tell me that they wanted to help. Now, there was rationing of, you had to have food stamps, ration stamps. So they would come in and bring me extra stamps so I should get, the proper nutrition. They knew I was sewing my clothes, and they came in to put the hems in my dresses.
Oh, my goodness.
If I'd come walking down the street with my groceries, the kids would come run and help me carry them into the house. Things I wasn't accustomed to anywhere.
Anywhere.
Even in Los Angeles. I didn't get that kind of welcome, you're one of us. And they spoke French and I didn't speak French. So we couldn't even communicate that way, not verbally. And it was mostly nodding and smiling and doing. That kept us going. And one day Jack had to go on the road. And the women noticed that I wasn't coming out on the porch. So they came in to be sure that I was all right, and to invite me to their porch, because you must be lonely, I mean, they didn't say it in so many words, but that was the feeling that they conveyed to me. So I started to do my part. My porch, there was a French-Canadian family above me with a lot of children, and I had a screen door on my porch. So I started putting big bowls of fruit on my kitchen table. So when the kids came down the stairs, they could peek in, and then they would knock, And I decided they must be poor because they had something like 8 kids. And so I would open the door and invite them in and give them fruit and, try to reciprocate in some way, because I do believe in reciprocation as part of a relationship. And I didn't want them taking care of me. I wanted to form a relationship with them so I could do for them as well in whatever way I could.
How long were you there?
And we were there a whole season.
A whole season.
A season from April through October. And we won the Little World Series that year. And Jack was very instrumental in that happening. So after the final game, a crowd formed, and a reporter wrote, and they followed Jack and ran after him, and then finally got him and put him up on his shoulders. And a reporter wrote, it's one of the few times in history when a mob chases a black man, and to celebrate him.